Hey everyone, welcome to Bridge Stories. This is our new podcast giving people space and time to tell their stories of encountering God and being changed by Him. We hope you're encouraged by these stories and also that you leave excited that you know a lot of really awesome people a little bit better. So sit back and enjoy. All right, let's do it.
All right.
So why don't you formally identify yourself for the record?
Okay, I am Constance Faith Avina.
I had no idea your name was Constance.
Yes.
I know you as Connie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm glad to have you on our podcast, Connie.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking for a while about different people I'd love to have on, and I don't want to freak you out, but I was driving here and I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about our time together, and I was a little nervous about it.
Really?
Because my experience with you is that you are a tremendous listener.
I've been told.
Every time I've ever talked to you, I just feel like, man, she is so present and she's listening. It's a great feeling, but I don't know that I've ever sat and just chatted and heard you talk a lot. So, which is kind of like at the same time very curious to get to know you and have you, but also like I hope she's ready to not listen the whole time and talk.
No, actually, once I get going, you'll probably have to stop me because I can talk.
Okay, well, I'm excited for that. So why don't you just introduce yourself? I'm sure a lot of people who are going to listen are familiar with who you are, and then there's kind of like another level of people who say, oh, I recognize that woman, but I don't know her. So tell us where you came from, and we'll just start to talk about your background a little bit.
Okay. Well, I was born to missionary parents and in Cuba.
You were born in Cuba.
I'm sorry. I like to say I was made in Cuba.
Okay.
But I was born in Fullerton.
Okay.
I had an older sister, Ruth, who was born in Cuba.
Okay.
And the sister after me, also born in Cuba. So 3 girls. I was born in 1956.
Okay.
Mom and Dad had, I love to talk about them if you don't mind.
No, I would love that, yeah.
Okay. So they were attending what is now Vanguard, and it was Southern California Bible College back then.
Okay.
And Mom was the missions secretary, and Dad was in his, I think, sophomore, junior year probably, and they were having big time revival meetings. Itinerant preachers were coming through, and they were talking about the end times, and so Dad really felt that he called to Cuba. And for some reason, I don't know who was telling them about Cuba.
Wow.
So he and a friend, I believe the friend's name is Scotty, they left school, dropped out, and traveled across the U.S. and got on a ferry and into Havana and ended up in a town called Trinidad.
And did your mom go with him at that point?
No, she was back at school.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a really good student. And, but like I say, the mission...
Dropping out wasn't for her. No. Okay.
until, yeah. Anyway, so they communicated, because she was the missions secretary. And so I think Dad was over there for about a year and came back home. Interesting. My dad has had a lot of women bless him in his life, beginning with his great-grandmother.
Okay.
Anyway, so in Cuba, there was a woman that took them in to her home, fed them. They were able to stay in her home while they ministered. And
what year did he go to Cuba?
what year? I want to say 1950. Ooh, no, they were married in 53, I think. Maybe 52, early 50s.
Okay.
He had to be they got married when they were 21.
Wow.
So 2019 when he left.
So when they got married, they clearly went back to Cuba?
Yes. So he came home and he went on a double date with his good friend Bob Jones. Oh my gosh, those two were characters. They hit it off, or at least Dad told her he loved her from the get-go, and convinced her to let's have a whirlwind wedding and let's get going because we need to be in Cuba. And her Dad was not very happy about that, but they did it, and off they went. And
Wow.
I think bless her heart, she didn't know any Spanish. She thought she was going to be going to Asia, China, as a missionary.
Okay. So had she been studying to speak Chinese or something?
I don't know. I don't know. She had a good friend who'd been raised as a missionary kid over there and was going back.
So they get married and off they go to Cuba.
Yeah.
Now, I know, I think probably just enough to sound like a total moron about Cuba, but in this time frame, this is not what we think of Cuba now, not even a little bit. So what was kind of Cuba like in that time?
Well, you should watch the movie Vivo with Colton.
Okay.
It's
it's like a little Pixar movie or
Yes.
animated. Okay.
Yes, by Lin-Manuel Miranda directed it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's got a lot of rap and that depicts what Cuba looked like back then and still looks like now.
Okay.
It's not changed much. But the people were joyous, a lot, just the music, the just lifestyle, the happy people, and Mom and Dad loved it. And the people loved them.
Yeah.
It was really a neat time. They started a church in Sancti Spiritus, which translates to Holy Spirit. It was really kind of neat how the organization was formed. It was Las Buenas Nuevas, the good news. He had a radio station, and
He had a radio station in Cuba.
yes, yep, in town. I know. There's a picture of him in a VW bus. I don't know if Danny knows that. With all these things on and all the equipment.
So was he preaching? Was he talking
Yes.
about what was he doing on the radio?
Definitely, spreading the good news about the Lord, and lots of and then they would have meetings at night, like out in the open squares, and lots of people were getting saved. It was an exciting time.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
So out in the square. So at this point, being a missionary is not a problem. The Cuban government doesn't see this as a problem.
Not at all.
Yet.
Right. So it was still under the rule of Batista.
Okay.
Lots of missionaries were coming, including my dad's parents. His stepfather and mother came as well. So I want to back up a minute because Dad had a taste of the mission field with his dad and mom. My dad's real dad died from polio.
Oh, okay.
Dad was a year and a half old. His mom remarried. She was quite the party girl. They didn't know the Lord. They moved from Kansas to Fresno. And then
I'm sorry, from Kansas to Fresno. You think you're upgrading and you're going to California. Sorry if you're from Fresno.
Exactly. Yeah. And so anyway, Dad was pretty much raised by his grandmother, Grandma Simpton.
Wow.
She was a powerful woman and godly woman. But his mom didn't know the Lord yet, or maybe she chose not to walk with the Lord at that time. So she met a strapping, good-looking guy, Buck Northrup, a tall man, really good-looking guy.
Sounds like a Western cowboy in like Hollywood.
Montana, I think he was
Northrup.
from. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
William C. Northrup, but his.
Great name.
But he went off to Hawaii to work in the sugarcane industry, C&H Sugar, I think. He managing the teams or something like that. And he asked for my grandmother to come over to get married. Well, wait, maybe she just to come over and visit and to stay a while. Well, then they were going to get married, and so they called for my dad at 6 years old to come over to join them. He went over on one of those big ships. I want to say it's the SS Lurliner. I think that was the name of it.
Wow.
So he was born in 1930. He was in 36. Off he goes, and it wasn't a passenger ship at that time. It was a
Like cargo or
cargo ship, yes. But they treated him so well, and there's a little picture of him as dressed as a captain, the cutest. He was the cutest kid, like Colton is so cute. My dad was that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, he arrives all excited and gets off the ship and to meet his dad, his new dad to be. And they didn't hit it off too well. It was kind of sad. So immediately he felt rejected. But his mother was so happy to see him. Anyway, they had 2 more children, got married, had 2 more children there in Hawaii. Then 1942 comes,
Yeah.
the bombing of Pearl Harbor. But they were on the Big Island, Kona and, living there. But immediately they had to start helping the soldiers. So my dad remembers that his mom started sewing uniforms, repairing uniforms, preparing meals, and
Yeah, they were gearing up for World War II.
yes,
Wow.
it was wild.
So from a very young age, if you had looked all the way back, it wouldn't have surprised anyone that your dad kind of had this adventure
Yes.
spirit in him.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and he was a free spirit too. I'll have to tell you more about him as time goes on. Anyway, they come back to Fresno, and trying to remember now, Dad. I wonder if he came back first. I don't. Maybe he did, but he was about 11 or 12. He got saved at a revival meeting that his grandmother took him to.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when his parents arrived so he must have gone ahead of them, he asked them to go to church. They get saved and turned on for the Lord. And when Buck Northrup heard about the Amazon jungle in Venezuela needing missionaries, like the first missionaries, they got themselves ready. They were trained up in Mendocino County
Oh yeah.
at an army base or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would resembled what being in that environment in the jungle would.
Just really damp, wet.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So your dad ended up going to Venezuela too?
So off they went in a 1930 Model A car.
Driving
5 of them. Yes.
to Venezuela. Okay,
Crazy.
keep going. I got to hear this.
Okay. So yeah, they had a terrible accident in Oaxaca, which is southern Mexico, that almost rolled him off the road. Dad wrote all this down, which is so wonderful for all of us to have. Yeah. My brother John, I'm hoping he does something with it. He's a video producer. He could make a movie. He hopes to. Anyway, I hope he makes a movie of Dad's life.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's a time when in Mexico, my grandmother got really sick. I think it was meningitis.
Okay.
And my grandfather called for the local pastor to come and pray for her. And he asked for some oil. And my grandfather told my dad, go in the kitchen and find some oil. Well, all he could find was a jar on the stove. It turned out to be chicken fat, And the pastor ended up pouring it all over my grandmother. I guess anointing her.
Anointing her with chicken fat.
Yeah. Do you know, the Lord touched her.
Wow.
She revived. She was well.
Wow.
I don't know. It wasn't long. I don't know if it was immediate.
Yeah.
But they were able to get back on the road and down to the Amazon jungle. I think Dad said she may have been the first white woman in the jungle, which at the time was probably a very good thing that saved my grandfather's life.
Wow.
Because they would get into a raft or barge on the Orinoco River and go to, find tribes people to witness to. And one time there was this witchcraft doctor. I think that, yeah, right? Witchcraft. Anyway, I don't know if I'm saying that right. And they pretty much surrounded them. And my dad said it was scary. They didn't know what was going to happen. But because something that my grandmother did appeased them and, made food, or I don't know what. Anyway, they let him go.
Wow.
I know. So it's because that was in because, Nate Saint and Jim Elliott, and the 5 guys got killed in 1956, I think. They got killed down in that area.
In the Amazon.
Yeah, by tribes.
Okay.
People. And that's a whole nother story, really. Amazing story.
So your dad, he's Fresno, Hawaii, back to Fresno, off to Venezuela.
Yeah.
How does he make his way to Southern California to Bible college?
Okay, well, so living down there in extreme conditions, but they were part of New Tribes Mission, and a plane would fly supplies into them ever so often. And Dad was about 11, and he and my grandfather were having a difficult time. And my grandmother said something to the missions director, and so they all agreed it would be time, and my dad wanted to come back to Fresno to live with Grandma
Okay.
Simpton, my great grandmother, his grandmother. Yeah. So that's when he went to high school. That's when he got. No, he was already saved. Anyway, went to high school. Ended up going to Bible college.
I can't imagine your dad in high school in Fresno, which I got to believe is mostly the children of, farmers and agriculture,
True.
and having anyone that can relate to where he's already been at that time in his life.
No.
So you clearly have this tremendous heritage. So fast forward, your parents end up in Cuba.
Yes.
If I'm remembering correctly, you are made in Cuba, not born in Cuba.
Right.
So what transpires? Are they kicked out of Cuba? Are they kind of hearing rumblings that you better get out, or what happened there?
Yes. So Castro came on the scene.
What year was that? Do you know?
Okay, I was born in 56. Celeste was born in 59. It was right around, it didn't take long for him to take the country over. So 58, 59.
Okay.
And at first, Dad and Mom both thought, hey, this guy sounds pretty good, like he wants to help the people. And Batista was a dictator, I believe.
Right.
So they thought this could be better. Well, as it turned out, it wasn't. Dad went to one of Castro's long-winded speeches. Like he would go on for hours and hours. There's a picture of my dad with two of the rebel fighters, anyway. So, yes, we were there during the strafing. The war started.
Okay.
Celeste was a baby. My dad said that he would have us all get under the bed. He would put Celeste in a chest of drawers. That would be the safest place for her. Under the bed as well. Anyway, crazy, crazy times. Sometimes I wonder how it affected us. Our psyche at the time, that kind of fear. Well, so much so that my older sister, when we came back to Fullerton, to my grandmother's house, my mom's mother, Fullerton Airport was nearby. Whenever a small plane would fly over, Ruth would run in the house and get under the bed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
Sad.
I know. So anyway, yeah, we were told to leave. Americans could not stay. I remember one missionary got shot at in a Jeep and lost his eye. So things were getting very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we had to leave. That we had no choice.
So you come back to Fullerton, and is that where you grew up as a little girl?
No. So we were there a little while
Okay.
with my my grandmother. She was another godly woman, Grandma Seals, my mom's mom, an amazing lady. And they were attending an Assemblies of God church. That was mom's church, home church in Fullerton.
Okay.
So they knew they were already going to be staying in missionary work. They thought they were going to South America, Brazil. But we ended up in Mexico.
Okay.
We go to Mexico, and Dad gets really ill. But he'd been tested up here. I want to say at the City of Hope. So he'd already been really ill up here before we left.
Okay.
Turns out he had tuberculosis.
Oh.
And the government sent a letter to Grandma's house, or the state, saying Paul Northrop needs to report to City of Hope. He needs to be in quarantine. And so sure enough, we had to come back, and he was there for 3 months. And again, a very scary time, not knowing if he would survive it. He got real thin and very, very sick.
Yeah. How did they treat tuberculosis at that time?
I don't know. I honestly don't. That's a good question.
Yeah.
But definitely quarantine. I'm not even sure my mom could see him. She would go visit him. But we were all at my grandmother's house in Fullerton. Yeah. I have a few memories of that, not a lot.
So he recovered.
Recovered.
And then just right back to Mexico? And where in Mexico were you at?
Mexico City, although prior to that, they thought maybe southern Mexico, Chiapas area.
Okay.
And I don't know the reason for coming to Mexico City, but we did. And maybe because that was a central place to start a Bible school.
Okay.
They had that, felt that was what God was calling them to do. So it's interesting. They started a church in Cuba and the radio, but in Mexico it was more of a Bible school.
Okay.
And it was in our home. And young people would come from, literally villages all around Mexico. I remember that clearly, yeah. So my sister and I started attending a American school, but it was both Latin American kids and American kids. We did our kindergarten and maybe first grade. Yeah.
Wow. And then in your home, your dad is training up leaders to,
Yes.
to teach God's word.
That's right. That's right. And they were so busy. You know, Mom was preparing meals and teaching the girls how to sew, and she played the accordion. You know, so she was teaching. They both, Mom and Dad, were. I just remember them being literally full-time ministry, and continuing. Well, they had the three girls, us three girls.
Wow.
Then, I don't know how we ended up moving to Puebla, a city 2.5 hours south. The city I loved. That's where I consider, that's my hometown, because we left there when I was 14.
Okay.
But it was there that we mostly lived on a farm and lived in the main house, which also became the classrooms. You know, we lived upstairs. Although I remember the students, we were all together all the time. And then eventually a building was built for them, you know, dormitory and then classes.
So I don't mean to interrupt, but at this time, clearly your mom and dad are so invested in the ministry.
Yes.
So you grow up around it.
Yes.
Is the idea of like a faith that belongs to you? Is this just something that you just grow up with? Is it sort of like that's mom and dad's thing and I'm learning about it? At what point did you start to feel like, you know, this isn't mom and dad's thing. This is something that I love Jesus dearly too.
Exactly. Interesting you say that. But Mom told me she told me she passed when she was 73 in 2005. 10 years prior to that, she told me, Connie, you sat up one day in your crib in Cuba. You were 2 years old, and you just blurted out. You had been sleeping, and you blurted out, I love Jesus with all of my heart.
Wow.
And then went back to sleep. And that just touched me because that was so true. That just rung, you know, I believed that, you know, and I just love that would have been my reaction because I loved being with them in the ministry. It's funny, all of us siblings have we each have our own story, you know. Yeah. But I loved people coming to our house. Our home in Puebla was Grand Central Station, you know. Oh my goodness. But I was 7 years old when having family devotions, I just realized I want to give my heart to Jesus. This is the moment I want to say I'm
Wow.
his. Yeah. Yeah.
As clear as day, at 7 years old, you just knew. That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, Connie, that you were in Puebla until you were 14.
Yes.
And then do you come back to the States at 14?
Yes. So, Mom and Dad really got very busy and had 2 more children, boys. So now we were a family of 5 kids.
Yeah.
We lived as tourists down there. So that meant that every 6 months we'd have to come up to the border.
Right.
You know, and that was always fun because we had Whataburger, you know, hamburgers and fries that we would all have to share. But still, that was the highlight every 6 months, and go shopping, you know, they gave us $8 to go and buy. and Mom said, and it's true, I love shoes and purses.
One gallon of gas right now, huh?
I know, right? Exactly. But anyway, went to school down there. Again, Mom and Dad were so busy that we weren't as involved with them in ministry. But we were going to a missionary school with other missionary kids, and it was a wonderful school. About 40 kids in a house in our neighborhood. In my 9th grade class, we had 4 students. We had teachers from the U.S., wonderful teachers.
Was it like a boarding school? You were living there? Or?
No, we would just go every day.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There was another very large mission, Latin American mission, there and that's the reason that they set up a school, which was so great for our family, you know. But anyway, so Celeste and I, because back in that day, girls didn't come out in the street to play. But there were such wonderful parks right out in front of our house, you know, in this neighborhood we lived in. So we made friends with boys. And so There were several years where we were just hanging out with the boys, and it was all fun. You know, we were kind of tomboys. Started riding motorcycles, and just so we kind of got sneaky because when Mom and Dad would leave, then they didn't always want us out there. They'd say, "You girls, you need to stay inside," but they would leave, so we would come out. So kind of got a little disobedient, in that sense. I say that because Mom got worried that we were getting a little boy crazy, and I did have a boyfriend.
Okay.
I was 14, and he promised me to wait for him, that we'd get married.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, let's wait till you. Anyway, so Mom said, I need to get my girls home. I want them to finish school up there. And in her mind, she was probably thinking we would go to Bible school. We never talked about it really. She did want us to go to college.
Yeah.
She really did. Mom was amazing, an amazing Old Testament teacher.
Wow.
And you would have loved talking to her. She really was sad to have dropped out of college as well, and had always hoped to go back. But my goodness, she knew enough already, and life experience,
Yeah.
Too bad she couldn't have gotten an honorary degree.
Yeah. So often that life experience is, it comes out in teaching in such a cool way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was invited to speak at women's conferences. She was the best speaker. My dad was, but my dad had the heart, and just the people loved him, and but Mom would sit on the front row and fill in his sentence, or he'd ask her now, anyway,
Fill in the blanks for him. Yeah.
they worked together so well. Yeah.
So they were good at preaching together. They were like a team. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yes. Yeah. But yeah. So anyway, we came up here to the Santa Cruz area because my mother's brother was a vice principal at a school in the San Lorenzo Valley.
Okay.
Maybe you know that area since
Yeah. I know the names and I kind of have an idea.
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with it, but
Yeah.
I know it. Yeah.
there was Scotts Valley, Felton, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek.
Yeah. I know them by name, but I'm not.
Beautiful area in the Redwoods.
Yeah.
The high school was only a student body of 700, so it was
Okay.
perfect size. I don't know about my siblings. I had a really hard time. Mexico was home.
Yeah.
That my heart was there, and having attended a small school,
Yeah.
and then to go to what I thought was
So I forgot to ask this. It had crossed my mind. So you're in Mexico. You're going to school. You even have a boyfriend.
yes,
Are you primarily speaking Spanish?
outside, but in our home, always English.
Okay, but you were a fluent Spanish speaker.
Yes.
So you come back. Is there any is it like a cultural speed bump for you that now you're in the Redwoods in California going to high school with kids who have no life experience like you've had?
True. Yes, I would say that was true. We had come up when I was in second grade and attended school. Mom and Dad had taken a break, and it was a good thing. They bought a home in Fullerton for $15,000.
My gosh.
No, I know. That had to be in the late 60s, maybe.
Okay.
So that gave us a taste of the U.S. and being around, so that helped, I think, prepare us for high school.
Yeah.
But still, it was hard because I ended up making best friends with the foreign exchange student from Brazil, Mindy Skabelski. Bright, we were both redheads, and
Wow.
yeah, that was a lot of fun. When I graduated, the cheerleaders, a couple of them said to me, "Connie, why didn't you go out for cheerleading? You would have been great." I almost fell on the floor. I thought, they would think of me that way? See, I didn't think of me. I felt very insecure, very shy, and didn't fit in. You're right. I felt like I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
And we really weren't involved in a church either.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes. That was a hard thing. Mom was really wanting us to get involved in a youth group. But it didn't happen. We here and there, but not consistent, not where we were really. So spiritually, I would say it was a dry time.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, my dad continued to travel. So my mom, bless her heart, raised 5 children And Andy, this is where financial insecurity took root in me at a very young age.
Yeah.
I was so in tune with Mom because I was born 15 months after my first sister. My older sister, bless, I feel bad for her because within 6 months of her life, Mom was pregnant with me.
Yeah.
And so I was just somehow connected to Mom.
You just kind of read her body language and knew the anxieties and the
yes.
stresses. Yeah.
Yes. And she would be very emotional, cry easy. And but I remember just her worrying, and knowing that she needed to trust the Lord,
Yeah.
But the reality of it was tough. It's amazing. We lived on $500 a month.
Wow.
Down in Mexico. So coming to the States then was even tougher.
Wow.
And Mom then thought she had to go to work, and it was a hard time, really hard time. But God always provided. We never went without a meal.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Wow.
It's an amazing time.
So you have kind of the seeds of adventure and travel and missions work deep in you. So you finish high school, and then
Yes.
what do you decide to do from there?
Well, Mom and Dad, we knew we're going to go back to Mexico.
Okay.
They had planned to go back, take my brothers and my younger sister Celeste. And I remember my dad sitting with us and asking us, "What do you girls want to do?" I was floored. I thought, we have a choice? But we knew Ruth was she'd already started attending Biola
Oh, okay.
for nursing,
Yeah.
career. And so she was down here living with some friends. But because Mom and Dad had the house in Fullerton, we were going to be able to live there. They had been renting it out. And so I knew that I needed to go to college.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be a teacher, which is what Mom had wanted to be. But when I took some business classes, oh my goodness, I fell in love.
Yeah.
Business. And my business teacher in high school, Mrs. Hoagland, she offered to get me a job in Santa Cruz for the county. And I kind of, thought about it, but then I thought, well, where would I live though, and really, so anyway, ended up down here, living in Fullerton. So I graduated in 74 from high school. And started attending Fullerton College. Ruth and I both worked at Disneyland,
Oh, wow.
which was a lot of fun. Yeah.
When did Disneyland begin there in Anaheim? How old is Disneyland?
I don't know.
Were those like the early days of Disneyland? Had it been established for quite some time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because this was now the 70s. Don't you think the 50s?
I honestly have no idea. People are going to give me a hard time, but I'll just say it. I'm going to Disneyland in April, and I agreed to go to Disneyland as long as it was on a weekday in the morning because I'm not a fan.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Of crowds or just of
Lines, crowds,
Yeah.
Disney.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. Yeah. It's you've got to be prepared for it. Huh?
I'm sorry, I got us so sidetracked. So
okay.
you're going to Fullerton College, which is now, we know it as Cal State Fullerton.
Fullerton College actually was the community college.
Oh, okay. I had no idea.
Yep.
Okay. And you're working at Disneyland and you're living in your parents' house that they
Yes.
had bought
Yes.
in Fullerton. Okay.
Yes. I thought I was going to say something else, but I don't remember. Yes. And both Ruth I don't think she was attending Biola anymore.
Okay.
She had found her niche in an ultrasound 2-year course at, I believe, Fullerton College.
Oh, wow.
And that was just perfect for her. Yeah. Yeah. But one of us worked I think she worked at the Fox Theater in downtown Fullerton. That was another kind of a landmark.
Yeah.
But again, the financial insecurity
Yeah.
drove me. I thought, no, I've got to be able to, support us. And So that was always on my mind. I took it very seriously. And so I looked for a job through the placement office at Fullerton College. And by the way, when I heard Phyllis's interview or podcast
Yeah.
about Melodyland days,
Yeah.
we had attended Melodyland in the 60s, actually. When I say second grade, we lived here, they were at Candle, I don't know if it's called Candlewood, I think, was the first building they were in Anaheim.
Okay.
Somehow Dad and Mom, connected with the pastor, Ralph Wilkerson at the time, and Glenn and Peggy Anderson were the associate pastors.
Okay.
We were baptized, as three girls, we were baptized on New Year's Day there at the church.
Wow.
Pastor Ralph, yeah.
It's crazy when you sit and talk to Christians, whether it's either on a podcast or outside of it. You just start to hear stories, and you realize it's like a spider web. There's so many crisscrossing, and
Yes.
it becomes kind of a small world. I think. I think God intended it that way, that we would realize that our common faith overrides all sorts of differences that we have.
That's right. Yeah, I love that.
Small world, yeah.
Small world, exactly. I know, it's amazing. So many here.
Yeah.
We have that connection. A lot of people knew of Mom and Dad or knew them.
Yeah.
A lot of people here at Bridge. In fact, the charismatic clinics then in the early 70s or late 60s, Dad and Mom were very involved there
Okay.
too. Yeah. Dad had a bout with cancer. My dad had major illnesses in his life. It was really something. Melanoma.
Oh, wow.
Back in the days, they wanted to see the lymph nodes, so they opened him up. His chest was like a cross up and sideways. Opened him up to look at the lymph nodes and make sure it hadn't spread.
Wow.
I know. It was intense.
There was just no blood work or something they could do back then.
No.
Wow.
Biopsy or,
Wow.
I know. So again, City of Hope. They were amazing. And they gave him a 5-year script, I think they call it, with cancer.
Yeah.
That was back in the day. I remember walking into Melodyland. Dad he was all wrapped up, had a coat jacket though over his shoulder. And Pastor Ralph saw him from coming in the door and called him, "Come down, Paul," and, to tell about how, the Lord had brought him through this.
Wow.
It was really neat. And they visited us in Mexico, and Pastor Wilkerson and even David Wilkerson. I don't know if you know him, Crossing the Switchblade. They weren't related,
Okay.
but he had the ministry in New York,
It sounds familiar. It rings a bell, but I'm not placing it.
Yeah, can't remember the kid's name that came to the Lord through his ministry, Crossing the Switchblade. Anyway, Dad helped put on a crusade there for him in Mexico City.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad, he loved people, and he would just stay in contact with people, even up to before he passed. He would just call people. Mom would go, "Paul, I think you're, she felt like maybe he was, bother. I don't know about bothering, but anyway, Dad just reached out.
Yeah.
He just kept in touch.
Wow.
And he had a relationship with Danny too, which is so cool.
It's awesome.
I know. So back to school, yeah. So Ruth and I, we started attending Melodyland as our church,
Oh, wow. Okay.
in the beginning,
Yeah.
but weren't consistent with it either because we were working as well on the weekends. And then, so anyway, I found a job with a CPA named David Avina.
Yep.
Yep.
I've heard of him. Yeah.
And he had just gotten his license, CPA license, and was renting an office with another group of accountants. And so I was in a room full of really older accountants. I think I was the youngest one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so started getting my feet wet and getting experience,
Yeah.
working with him, and continued. What am I trying to say? Transferred to Cal State Fullerton.
Okay.
Yeah, and graduated in 1979.
And you were doing accounting by then.
Yes, almost full time, working full time and going to school
Yeah.
time too.
Wow.
But life took a little bit of a turn, got a little bit complicated.
Okay.
Again, I was in a very vulnerable place, lonely, so missing my parents,
Yeah.
And both my sister and I think, were lonely. We had our Aunt Nova, up in LA that we could go visit. She was the best aunt. She never got married, and just really doted on us. Anyway, David and I started working together so much, and he was in a vulnerable place too. He had gotten married. And I hope one day you interview him, Andy. He has
Okay.
a story, and he should tell his story.
I'd love to, yeah.
But anyway, we began what really was an affair.
Okay.
Yeah. But we worked together so much. But then we'd end up having dinner together, And so his wife would travel a lot. She'd go back to Mexico. She was from Mexico. They had met in San Antonio, kind of a whirlwind get together. And within 3 weeks, he married her because he needed to get back here. He was already 30. And he said he was looking for a wife that would be a good hostess. That was kind of...
That was it.
Yeah.
So one box to check.
And on the way back, it was already he could tell that he'd probably made a mistake. It was just it was hard, really hard. But they ended up having a little girl.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, for 7 years, it was a secret. We were in secret. Spiritually, I was in the worst place you can imagine. Going to church, because at this time then Mom and Dad were coming back home. We were all living in the house in Fullerton.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did anybody know? Were you sharing this with anyone?
No, my older sister did, and my younger sister. She'd already come up to live with us.
Yeah.
So yes, and I felt bad that they had to carry that for so long. But I'd go to church with the family on Sundays.
Yeah.
And I would ask the Lord for forgiveness, and that Roger story, again, kind of, I think they were a church were founded, as part of the Melody Land, kind of starting different churches.
Yeah.
And, just, oh Lord, forgive me. I know it's not right. But then I'd go right back to it because that was my work life. That was like,
Yeah.
it was just that horrible turmoil and tension. I moved into an apartment, got myself an apartment.
Okay.
And my younger sister moved in with me. But anyway, it all came to a head when I got pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah, we got pregnant.
Yeah.
1980. And just the feeling that, and the reason I'm telling you this is because I've been set free.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but it was years and years
Yeah.
of guilt and shame. We both quickly made a decision to terminate the pregnancy because I didn't. My first thought, honestly, I thought I cannot tarnish Mom and Dad's reputation.
Yeah.
I just
You just felt that weight, yeah.
I can't. Plus, I mean, I wish I'd had more time to think about it,
Yeah.
and make a way. Anyway, and of course, David was still legally married.
Right.
And so, but that was finally the breaking point where we couldn't go on, So I broke up with him. Mom and Dad found out, and that was worse, I think, than if their ministry had been tarnished. It was awful. Oh, it was awful. They didn't know how to react to me. They were so angry, so hurt, and it's like I had to stay away for a while. We couldn't see each other. It just broke my heart, devastated. Anyway, but David and I continued to see each other. But I left and got a job.
Okay.
And I remember in December 1980, walking out to the parking lot where I was working. John Lennon had been shot. I don't know why that
You just knew.
I wasn't a Beatle fan. I was a Monkey fan. But, I was just so sad. My heart was breaking. Just the sadness of everything. And I didn't know how I was ever going to recover,
Yeah.
But Dad and Mom had some dear friends who rallied around me, and kind of fast forward, it's kind of a blur. David helped me remember a little bit this morning. We were talking about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in the breakup, I said to Dad, because our relationship had been restored with Dad and Mom, I said, Dad, would you go with me? I want to apologize to his wife, and I want to go talk to David to tell him that we need to break up for good.
Yeah.
And so he did. He ended up leading his wife in the sinner's prayer. That was so Dad. By the way, Dad would, anywhere we went, would ask people, waitresses, anywhere we were, do you know the Lord? Do you know Jesus? Have you heard about Jesus? And people would respond positively. I remember only one time, one kind of surfer dude kind of like made fun of him,
Yeah.
So much so, Dad, down in Mexico, backing up a minute, he loved photography, and he would go into this, I remember a Kodak shop in downtown Puebla, and was witnessing to a gal, Margarita. I don't know how long, but she ended up coming to the Lord. Her entire family came to the Lord. She was like wildfire. They started a church as well. That's kind of a whole
Wow.
really cool story. That's part of the
Yeah.
the ministry continues in Puebla, continues in Cuba too. Just amazing. I can't say enough about my parents
Yeah.
and their love for the Lord. And
I know we've had updates here at the church.
yeah,
Your parents' ministry in Cuba is still alive and very well.
yes. And my brother John continues to be in contact
Wow.
with the pastors. Yeah,
Just
and
incredible things happening.
incredible, and it's so hard right now.
Yeah.
So hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to David and I. Again, we ended up getting back together.
Mm-hmm.
I told David, listen, I know that the man I marry has got to love the Lord as much as I do. I love the Lord, and I've gone sideways, but I want to raise my children in a Christian home, and I know I need to be married to a Christian. Anyway, so I broke up one more time with him, and my parents put me in touch, or they asked some friends if I could go away. Yeah, so I went up to LA to live with a pastor and his family for a few weeks. Really, when I say live, I mean stay. But this is where David tells his story so much better. He had an incredible experience of coming to the Lord, and it is an amazing story because he was raised Methodist, didn't really understand Jesus and salvation. He thought he had a contract with God. He was going to become a multimillionaire. He had, wild.
Yeah.
When his mom had given him a Bible that he started reading when we were going through our turmoil, and it scared him. He realized he wasn't saved. And then he had an interesting meetup with a barber. It was like incredible how God
Just connected dots and people and
Yes.
wow.
So while I was away, not knowing this, he was desperate to talk to somebody about getting saved. The only person he knew was my dad.
I'm sensing a common theme throughout the story. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he goes and knocks on the door, and my aunt opens the door, Aunt Nova, and she was always so sweet to us, and so she recognized him, and he said, could I speak to Paul? And so as he walks in the door, he looks over in the living room, and there was Mom. Oh, Mom could give Mom could give some looks, and yeah, she was not pleased. And anyway, Dad sat down with him and answered his questions and prayed with him, and said that when he left there, got in the car driving away, he had the most joyful experience of literally just laughing out loud, just full of joy. He didn't care about anything, not even about us getting back together. He was just so excited to have found the Lord. And he started going to Calvary Chapel and Melodyland, I guess. Anywhere he knew, he'd heard about. He was trying to go to Bible studies. He just was
Just soaking it all up. Wow. Yeah. So you're still in LA. You don't even know any of this is happening.
I don't. And it was January, his birthday. My brother John came up to take me out to dinner. And I said to John, hey, I want to call David and just check on him. It's his birthday today. I just want to wish him happy birthday. And when I did, he told me. He said, you're not going to believe this. I said, oh my God. And I didn't. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, so that was January of 81, I believe.
Okay.
And so the rest of that year was still difficult. Mom and Dad were having a hard time accepting the fact, that we would be together. He had filed for divorce, I think in late 1980. And she was, they had gone their separate ways a few years prior.
Yeah.
So we are good friends today. His ex-wife lives in Brea with her spouse, and we get together several times a year.
Wow.
I know. It's pretty incredible.
It's incredible how God ties things together.
It really is. It really is. And I pray for them, deep Catholic, faith. But it's interesting. God has connected them with some Christian friends, and it's so fun to listen to them talk about it. Say, we'll never convert. We are Catholic. But they start talking about it, and so I know God's up to something in their lives. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, we ended up eloping. Long story short, we tried to plan a wedding. Literally had planned it all. Had the invitations. I remember sitting in Mom's kitchen with my sisters, starting to address the invitations, and we almost started laughing too about, oh man, like should we really just tell the whole story in this invitation? It was kind of it was just ridiculous, really, about the way we'd gotten together, how all this was happening. Anyway, so I forget. I think I tried to break up with him again one more time because I was just torn.
Yeah.
And then we got back together and just eloped. And the place I knew to go was where my grandfather, Buck Northrup, they'd years later come back to the States. In Lake Tahoe, he worked at the Chapel of Love. He was the officiant. I wish he'd been there when I went, but he was down here in a nursing home, actually. Yeah. Anyway, so we started our lives together, and this is where it gets exciting, where the Lord just met us. And
I've been excited all along, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I haven't bored you.
Before you go on, I think, it's clearly not a story that, is like something that's just easy, happy to tell.
Right.
But I think one of the beautiful things that's so important for people to hear is the story, because, we have a growing church community, and to think that we know what's going on in everyone's life is a lie. We don't.
Right.
And people are carrying all sorts of things.
That's
and
right.
I think when we're honest and we share these really like nasty things that have happened to us and the experiences we've had and the mixed emotions and all this stuff, I think God opens doors in people that people are like, I don't know if I could be real at a place like that. And sometimes that becomes the difference between, those people have their lives all together, I'm never going back there, versus those people have their lives together in some degree because God put them back together.
That's right.
And I can relate with that. So
Exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised, Connie, if somebody approaches you and just says, hey, can I talk to you? I'm very grateful that you decided to share that story.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. I did ask Danny. It's interesting. We ran into each other. I was in the office a few weeks ago, and I told him.
Yeah.
I said, Danny, Andy's asked me to do a podcast,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering, and his reaction was, Connie, God will, he'll let you know.
Yeah.
Just how much you should share. And I was really debating. In fact, we were supposed to do it 2 weeks ago, and then I had my teeth problem. Yeah. I thank the Lord for giving me a couple more weeks.
So you're thanking God for your dental problem.
I guess you're right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I had such a peace about it in the last few days. And when David and I talked about it, And I said, David, you know what? Our chains are broken. That shame is gone. The enemy doesn't have that hold on us anymore and ever again. And I've just had this sense of freedom. And I thought, oh, yes, if anyone here especially would be, if I could somehow be helpful in their walk and their freedom in the Lord. Yes. I will tell my story.
Yeah. I just have a sense of peace and confidence that God's going to use this story for certain.
And that's a miracle in itself, because I'm telling you, David and I lived with so much shame and guilt for years and years into our marriage.
Yeah.
The first, I'd say 10 years were so difficult financially. We were trying to work together in several different types of, he would start something and it just wouldn't, work out. And, it was just a hard time financially but we were attending church down in Rancho Santa Margarita, again, Mission Hills Christian Center.
Okay.
Pastor Mike, after Roger Story, was Mike Beals, who is now the president.
The president of Vanguard.
Vanguard. He's a dear friend. He considers being the sixth sibling in our family.
Oh, wow.
He loved mom and dad. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I know. Anyway, David got an offer. A headhunter called him. A recruitment officer or recruiter called him out of the blue. And said, hey, there's this company in downtown LA, Orlando Valuta Money Exchange, with Latin American countries, and they really need a controller, bilingual. Anyway, he just fit the bill and was hired immediately by this gentleman, Italian, Paolo Orlandi, who was a real character to work for.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the first time David we'd had a regular paycheck coming in. We were so excited that we started tithing. And that's what I love about David, is we both just have this, if we look at each other, and yes, we don't argue about giving.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful that the Lord gave us, that kind of a heart. Anyway, within a year, the company was getting sold. David was a major part in that, getting that done, to Western Union. And he was given a bonus equal to his salary.
Wow.
I know. That allowed us to pay off the IRS, because we'd had some liens from when we had the business, and to put a down payment on a house.
Wow.
Yeah, we bought our house in Tustin in let me see if I get this right, 1997?
Okay.
I think that's right, yes, for $241,000.
Wow.
5-bedroom house with a pool.
I've been to that house.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah, I think so. You guys owned it up until a handful of years ago.
Yes, we sold it in 2018.
I think when Michael and I started that married life group, we had a Christmas party or something there.
That's right. Oh, neat. Well, that was the money pit. And oh man, I went way overboard in remodeling that house.
Okay.
So wishing I hadn't done it. If anybody take a lesson take a clue from that. Oh man, we put way too much money in it. But
so you start tithing, and clearly God blesses.
Oh, we saw it from the very beginning.
Wow.
Oh, that is a huge testimony in our lives.
You know what, you've mentioned a few times kind of growing up with this financial insecurity. I have to imagine that that was probably a language that God knew you would understand.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. And just to have that freedom to say, Lord, I just trust you. Not trying to think twice about it, and not holding back, is just because there's such a freedom in giving when you know you're obeying Him in that area. It's so freeing. And then just to wait and say, okay, what's going to happen? It's just an exciting way to live, because He provided me with work. I had a 12-year stint at K1 Speed, indoor go-kart, electric go-karts.
Yeah.
I helped that company grow from 2 locations up to 31 and starting to franchise worldwide.
I experienced the blessing of that job for you too.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
When I this is my side of the story. When I think I had worked here for like maybe 3 or 4 weeks. I remember telling Danny, he was asking me like, how can I equip you? What do you need? And I remember telling him like, I think we need a victory of just fun.
Yeah.
I think these kids need to just be out of here. We need to just have like a moment where we have a memory, something, just a lot of laughter and joy.
Right.
Do you know anything? I was new to Orange County. I knew nothing. He said, I know someone. I'm like, is that a good thing or a bad thing or what? He's like, she's the CFO of K1. I'm like, K1 is awesome. So we took the youth group, and that was like a turning point for us. It was, kids started coming back, and they had this common memory that, I remember racing you at K1 Speedway.
Yeah. Oh, that's so neat.
And you figure out who's competitive and who doesn't care really quickly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun time having you guys there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that came to an end in 2018, but the Lord gave me that job. And what was so cool is my office was kind of like the central command. The owners, they were a married couple. He was from France.
Okay.
And she from New York. They were wild. They weren't married when I started working for them.
Okay.
They finally did get married. I ended up spending half my time being there, talk about a good listener.
Yeah.
They would come in and back and forth, arguing or talking about and wanting my opinion. And anyway, it was.
Tell them you're only paying me as a CFO. If you want to pay me as a counselor, then
That's right. That's right. They joked that I should have different signs outside my door. What I was, but I had opportunity to witness to them. They didn't accept the Lord during that time, but I'm really hoping it planted a seed. But it was neat because there were my staff. They were a great group of people. And when they would go through rough times, I remember one of the gals, her husband came down with lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's. It was bad.
Yeah.
He ended up at City of Hope. Wow. And I remember her coming in crying to me. And I just got up, locked my door, closed the blinds. I said, let's pray. And several times I was able to do that.
Wow.
It was just such a neat time. I felt like, I just do. I have an ability to minister here, to be and share my faith,
It's such a good reminder too. I think so often people think, oh, my career or my job is not one that lends well to sharing my faith. But what were you doing? You were the CFO of a go-kart company, right?
Right.
And even when you ask God to give me opportunities, He can give you opportunities to speak about Him and tell people about Him, even in the financial office of a go-kart company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. I remember one time sitting at Houston's restaurant too with the operations guy, a new guy that had come from Texas, and he was really neat. I think he was raised Methodist too. That's funny.
Okay.
But anyway, and my assistant controller, and I just had the opportunity also to just talk about the Lord, and I took it.
That's awesome.
It was just I feel like I was starting to practice like to really be bold enough to just start talking. I didn't have it all down pat. I couldn't have probably quoted verses word for word, but yeah, just talking about, hey, God. I love going back to God created all this. He created us in His image, and just the simple plan He has for us, to bring us back to Him.
It sounds like a little bit of your dad was coming out of you as you grew in the Lord. You were telling me your dad would sit down for a meal and just start asking, hey, Jesus,
Yep.
It sounds like little bits of your dad were coming out of you.
Yes, definitely.
I want to back up a little bit because you end up having kids. And so when did that come about? How was?
So we were married then. We eloped in 1982, August 10th, and had a miscarriage.
Okay.
And oh man, we thought, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's our punishment. That's what we deserve.
So you were still hanging on to a lot of the guilt and the shame.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But then. But then got pregnant because Michael was born in 1983.
Okay.
October 1983. And that was the delight of my life, was to be a mom. And oh man, I when I realized that, the joy, again thinking, well, I have a child in heaven, and that's what I thought too. I told David, if we keep this secret, everybody's going to find out. Our family in Christ is going to find out when we get to heaven, because
Yeah.
our son or daughter, and I just feel like maybe it's a daughter, is going to walk up to us, and we're going to be related. Anyway, I just thought of that. I don't know if the Lord let me think that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, Michael just loved being a mom. And then Andrew came along 2.5, 3 years later.
Okay.
And he was a delight. And although we were a little concerned to have another child, because to think if we could try to have a girl, we thought, oh no, one more boy. So David's 13 years older than I am.
Okay.
I love to tell his age because he's in such good shape and he doesn't look it. He will turn 80 next year.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
We're having the time of our lives now. Life is just, I'm just so grateful we hung in there, because there were times when we probably wouldn't have made it. You know that Shania Twain song? Looks
Probably
like we
not,
made
but-
it.
Oh, yeah, I do know that one. I do. As soon as you said that, I said, yeah, probably not. But I do know that one, yeah. I know that one because I'm pretty sure I danced with every middle school girl at the dances to that
Right.
one. That was like that was a big
Yes.
middle school dance song.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
Now, I attend Bridge Church board meetings, and
Yes.
your husband is currently on the board. And I don't know if you know this, but he says you're his boss. People will ask him a financial question, and he'll say, I'll write it down and I'll ask my boss. And some of the newer folks, fairly recently, some of the newer board members were looking over, and I think it was Danny or Pastor Scott looked at him and said, he means Connie.
Oh, that's so funny.
So I'm just curious your experience, because you've served on the church board here as well, and your husband has also. And through all of your story, from the beginning of feeling the kind of the pangs of
Yes.
financial insecurity, and then falling in love with business and accounting, and helping a successful business grow, then you get this opportunity to not just use this gift outside of the church, but in the church. So
Yes.
what was your experience like doing that?
Okay. Well, again, backtracking a little bit.
Yeah.
I had, when we did get married, David we had an accounting firm. He had a client who invited us to church up in West Covina, Faith Community Church.
Okay.
And that, again, God incredibly making a way for us. One of the pastors there, Gifford Claiborne, and Giff and Winnie, knew my mom and dad.
It sounds like everyone knew your mom and dad, Connie.
I know. But they showed us, I have never experienced that kind of unconditional love. They just took us under their wings and encouraged us. And I remember him taking David to like Southern California Edison, some meeting that guy was involved. He was involved in Union Rescue Mission and everything. Anyway, had David give his testimony back then. Anyway, from there we went back to Mission Hills, because that was just too far to drive. And I became the bookkeeper there at
okay.
church. Yeah.
Okay.
And even under Mike Beals. I was his bookkeeper
wow.
when he was the pastor there.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah, that was fun. And so that's how I got the experience. Yes. And so then we had one more church that we were involved in, a Nazarene church of all things. I remember seeing the pastor's picture in the local paper, the Tustin News, or Irvine News. And I told David, he just looks like a really neat guy. Anyway, we ended up going to that church. We were involved there and on the board there. So, I got to tell you, do we have time?
We have all the time in the world.
Okay. So Dad's illnesses. He came down with bipolar, manic depression.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that he had experienced. It just kind of popped up.
It hit him. He was high. Now that when Mom says we look back after moving here, he had this idea to put on a huge crusade at the Angel Stadium, Jesus 80 it was called. And I thought, Googled it last night to see when did Harvest start, and it was 10 years later that Harvest started their crusades. Dad got, I'm not kidding you, everybody was known back then, probably a lot through TBN, through Melodyland. Andre Crouch was there. Do you know who Andre Crouch was?
No.
Singer. I just loved him. Amazing guy. The pastor of Church on the Way up in Van Nuys.
Okay.
Why can't I think of his name? Anyway, just wonderful man. So many people came, and it was well attended. It was a really neat time. He tried it again in 1981, and it didn't work, and financially was difficult. And I think that was the trigger that caused him to go into a depression. He tried to go and commit suicide on a bridge in San Clemente. It was just shocking. But Mom got us all together, and we were just crying out to the Lord. Do you know, Dad was trying to find the highest building in Orange County, and a couple guys on the pier came up to him. They saw he was kind of distraught and started talking to him. They were believers. And they told him, "Look, please go back to your wife," because they knew that was before cell phones.
Yeah.
But I believe they were angels, that the Lord sent angels. I don't know. Anyway, he was hospitalized, and that began a period of about 6 months. He'd be into a deep depression. He never went back into a super high. It was depressions. It was so difficult, so hard on my mom. But boy, it gave us compassion for mental illness.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something,
Yeah.
We didn't mind speaking about it because it's
it was
real.
your dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we had known our dad.
Yeah, you knew him as this dynamic, powerful guy, and you saw him.
Yes.
So how old were you when that happened?
I was pregnant with Michael.
Wow.
And that's when Dad asked me for forgiveness again and again and again. Mom and Dad felt so bad, but God had restored our relationship, but he asked me one more time, "Connie, is it okay?" And I said, "Yes, Dad. It's all under the blood."
Yeah.
And I apologize. And I, of course, asked forgiveness of them. But yeah, it was 1983.
Yeah.
1983. Thank the Lord for a really good psychiatrist. It was just a minimal. Actually, though, they put him on lithium first.
Okay.
And that ruined his kidneys, but it worked. It was a wonder drug back then.
Yeah.
Eventually at age 80, it took his life, kidney disease, but age 80, that's a good long life. But after that, he did have, we had a wonderful psychiatrist who, very minimal dosages of several different medications kept him pretty stable. So it's just amazing, how that. And then I thought there was one other thing. Anyway, yeah. But so my dad was so busy in ministry that each 5 of us kids have a story to tell. I didn't feel like I was known by my dad.
Okay.
In my childhood. But fast forward to my mom passing away from a brain tumor, an incurable brain tumor, which shocking. But prior to that, I have to tell you, it was 2003. They were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. It was the 50th anniversary of the church in Cuba. A trip had been planned. My brother John was the main event planner, and Danny went on that trip. A couple pastors from Saddleback. It was a group of about 25 to 30.
Okay.
It was an incredible trip. All 5 of us siblings got to go back to Cuba with my parents.
Wow.
That was a God thing because Mom was diagnosed with the tumor within months of that.
Wow.
And it was, Andy, Danny could tell you stories too, but it was an incredible time. But being down there with the church, the main church, especially in Santi Spiritus.
Yeah.
I think I got a taste of heaven when Dad walked in. The church service was already going on, and they would worship for an hour at least, maybe an hour and a half, and then the preaching would start. So they'd been singing. They were all up on their feet. When they saw Dad coming through the door, they started clapping. And it was like such joy. And Dad just started going around to everybody and hugging them. And, he was recognizing people, some elders in the church.
Wow.
because it had been many years that he'd not been able to go back. He'd had a trip prior where he had to kind of go undercover, but this
Okay.
was like total freedom. We were able to move about.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was his reaction to
Amazing.
that?
Dad was such a humble guy. He just was like a little kid, just so happy to
Saying
see
hi to his
everybody.
friends.
Yeah.
Now you kind of left there relatively young.
Yes, 3 years old.
What was it like for you to see the reception your dad got as kind of an adult woman? Was that just like you had no idea of how much he meant to them, or?
We had an idea, yes, because he'd kept in touch with the pastor that they'd put in, the youth pastor. They put the youth pastor to head to over the church when they left in 1959. Liseo, just a wonderful man, and he'd done a great job. Yeah, and the churches flourished. They're house churches and churches in other cities.
Yeah.
There are multiple churches all over the island, and they consider themselves under the Buenas Nuevas organization, which was so great that was a formal organization that the churches, like the government recognized it, and so allowed the churches to exist.
Wow.
That was a God thing too.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but my dad, you asked the question.
Yeah. What was it like to be his daughter in that moment and see?
Yeah, just I cried. I just cried.
Yeah.
Because he gave his life. He gave his whole life to the Lord.
Mm.
He was not a selfish man. He was so humble.
Yeah.
He didn't have a prideful bone in his body.
Mm.
And many people can say that of him.
Yeah.
He didn't have an enemy that we knew of. I don't think he did.
Wow.
He loved people.
Yeah.
He loved people. And he loved God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Such a wonderful example.
That's amazing.
And what was so neat is that when after mom passed,
And was that 2005?
2005,
Okay.
her memorial service was incredible. Again, a taste of heaven. I think maybe 400 to 500 people at the church there on the campus of Vanguard University.
Wow.
So many pastors and from all over, Mexico, Canada. Yeah, they came and they all wanted, of course, to share, and then all of our family. We were almost embarrassed that it went on that long, but everyone seemed to enjoy it, and it was really an incredible time
Wow.
to celebrate her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say she was an amazing woman. They say behind every great man there has to be a good woman.
Yeah.
That was Mom. Yeah, and they had a great love story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it was after that. All five of us, I was the one more concerned, I think, about Dad being alone. Because it was always Paul and Vera, but he lived 6 more years. And we fixed up his condo in San Clemente. He really enjoyed living there with his little dog Sneaks. My younger brother lived with him part of the time.
Okay.
But there was one day he said to me, Connie, can I go home with you? And I said, sure, Dad, not knowing exactly what that meant. Well, that was it. I guess he'd fallen. We knew that he probably shouldn't be driving anymore. And anyway, so he came up to live with us, and I'm so grateful we had the room, the space.
Yeah.
And David said, of course. I said, yeah, that makes sense. 14 months, the boys also, my boys, really, Andrew told me the other night some stories about he and Grandpa and their conversations that I didn't know about. And just really, it was incredible.
Wow.
Dad's influence on this is so my dad, Andrew, we had his 21st birthday party in our backyard, he and his cousin Ashlyn, and they got a jump house in the front yard. But anyway, the kids were all sitting in the living room at the end of the night, and Dad was sitting right there in the middle of them all, carrying on a conversation. He could get along with anybody, and
Even a bunch
we
of
enjoyed him.
people celebrating their 21st birthday.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was having a ball. He was 80 years old. But he gave his last sermon in my living room on his 80th birthday.
Wow.
A bunch of people were there.
Is it recorded?
I wish it was. I don't think it is. But if John had been there, he was the only sibling that he'd moved to Asheville, North Carolina by then.
Okay.
But yeah, we blew it on that one. Yeah. But anyway, I had, that was God's gift to me, I felt, of having my dad.
Yeah.
At the end of his life, I had him 100% all for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was incredible. Incredible.
It's so amazing how God kind of brings all these things together. You had mentioned that, they were so busy in ministry that you didn't feel kind of seen or totally known.
Right.
And then God brings the story back together where, like you just said, you get them all to yourself.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
I did have to share him with my sisters, but the fact that I had him in my home and remember I told you that he had women in his life. He was blessed with women, grandmothers and all. The night he passed away, we knew it was close. He'd been sleeping really. He'd been unconscious. And I was at K1 trying to wrap everything up so I could take the time off that I was going to need to take. I remember leaving the office about 7 and arriving by this time he was in a home because he needed full-time care.
Okay.
And we found a really neat residential home where he had a room all to himself with his dog Sneaks, his little Chihuahua.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I walk in and it's all women. One of the women was the wife of Alberto Montesi, and another Latin American, evangelist, and her assistant and my sisters and my stepdaughter Laura was there. I was so glad. And I walk in greeting everyone, and the one of the women turned and said, "Your dad took his last breath." It was like, it just blessed me that he waited for me.
Wow.
But we'd had enough time.
Yeah.
So God is amazing to restore, renew. God is incredible.
Yeah.
To trust Him, to make all things new, to put things back together. I don't have enough words to describe how grateful I am.
It's so powerful to have one parent, let alone two, that no matter what comes in the roller coaster of life, whether it was their daughter being you going through just a really dark kind of turmoil season, you hear these stories of people who know the Lord and through thick and thin, no matter what they feel, or they hold things together.
Right.
And I love what you had said before. You had said, you said, "I'm so glad that we just hung on." And sometimes that's how it feels.
Yes.
You just hang on for dear life, sometimes just by the fingernails.
Absolutely.
And I think, when you have positive people in your life, I feel like the encouragement just to hang on gives you the motivation to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I think there's probably people who are feeling like, man, I'm just barely hanging on, that are going to feel encouraged by you sharing this. Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah. I think that's the neatest thing about telling our stories.
Yeah.
And the Lord, just how He continues to pursue us, and restore us. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to kind of move us forward a little bit and kind of head for a finish line here.
Yes.
But so you've been telling me that you were going to various churches. How did you find your way to what's now Bridge Community Church?
Okay. So it was about 10 years ago when Danny asked John, my brother John, to speak.
Oh, okay.
And it was right after the 08-09 financial crisis.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember. And I remember John just saying he was so excited. He felt like he had a word from the Lord for the church, about change, and I can't remember exactly what he spoke on, but I remember was so excited to come here with him. I remember Danny from the trip. I remember him newly married, and that they were pregnant with Kate. Didn't know Rochelle.
Yeah.
And we knew about the church, that it was a lot of people from Melodyland, and anyway, and it was an older building with like velvet seats and stained glass windows.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I remember telling David, because John was staying with me and with us, and I said, David, let's go listen to John speak at this church in Orange. And David said, no, we'll just go to our church. And I said, David, please, I have a way of getting. And finally, reluctantly, he came.
Yeah.
My siblings came too. I remember we took up the entire second row. And later I thought, oh man, I guess we probably kicked Jenny and Greg out of their seats. Remember, everybody had their seats. Yeah. So, and we were kind of, I just remember just being so happy to be with my brother John and to be with Danny again, and knowing how much Dad loved Danny. And then we got to meet Rochelle. And anyway, we left that day, and David said to me, this is where we're going to be going to church.
Wow.
I said, really?
The reluctant guy not only gave in, but he changed his tune on church altogether.
Yes. Yes, it was wild. So we started attending and just really loving it. And Danny was so kind to us. He's another pastor that showed us unconditional love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely his gift.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then it was within a short time that we were getting to know people. But within a short time, Maggie called me and asked if she could nominate David for the board. I'm like, whoa. I said, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of started getting really involved, you
Yeah.
know. Another neat thing, it was about Michael. Our boys didn't come with us. They would come with us sometimes.
Right.
But Michael has his story to tell too. But through the men's prayer group, Michael came back to the Lord, and the rest is history. I mean, he met Erica here, and they have a beautiful marriage and family, and
Yeah.
just walking with the Lord, and it just blesses us so much.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's definitely been a season of growth with families. I'm sure you've
Yes.
turned your head and looked around. It just seems like, where did all these people in their 20s and 30s come from?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
exciting.
You know what I think so much of, as you've been telling your story, I think, I'm in my mid 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I think so much of church. I think church sometimes falls prey to like wanting to attract and be cool and relevant all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for people like in their 30s that really want to follow the Lord, one of the things that I just love about this church is feeling like there's people a generation older that can say, just hang on.
Yeah.
Here's my real raw story. I
Yes.
don't have it all together, but God brought me through.
Yes.
I think so much of growing with young people and young families is things like this, that you're willing to share your story in this way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And we did get some help. We went to a Gary Smalley seminar at Saddleback back then. Wow, that was a huge, just to realize we were very different in our personalities, David and I. And why he didn't always want to be as social as I. His battery would get charged when he would
Yeah.
rest, and mine was charged being around people. So, and then some counseling too. Just a wonderful Christian counselor really helped. So yes, all of that is just willing to do the work to hang in, like you said. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yes, oh man, if anybody wants to come to us and go have coffee and chat, I'd love it.
Well, people are going to know your name and your face and your story now.
Yeah.
A lot of people have the same experience. A handful have told me, man, I felt like I had my crew where I sat in church, and now all of a sudden I'm like turning pretty popular. So I think, Connie, you're going to be signing autographs in no time. Maybe we should get some printed 8x10 pictures of your face so you can have them ready.
No. Oh, people are probably going to be shocked, but probably had a different idea anyway. But I'm glad. I'm just glad to be able to be real.
Yeah.
And this is a time in my life when I'm feeling such freedom in the Lord.
Yeah.
Absolute freedom. And I'm just excited for what the Lord is doing, especially here.
Yeah, it's, I told you at the beginning, I'm very grateful that you chose to talk and not just listen. But I do want people to know that. I think one of the things I try to do is think, like, what do I admire or know about the people I'm talking with? And I think my experiences with you, whether I'm talking to you or just watching you interact with others, you are a tremendous listener. Not just you're good at it. I think it's part of God's gift in you.
Thank you.
So I think if I could just say something, I would say if people have heard something that resonates with them about your story, maybe something they haven't told anyone or they relate with, I think not only do you have an incredible story, but you're an incredible listener. So I'm volunteering you.
Okay.
If people want to talk to you, you're a tremendous person to talk to. So I want to highly encourage it.
Okay.
As we kind of wrap up, is there anything that you'd want to share with anyone, you want to leave with them as we kind of head for the finish line?
Yeah. Well, the other thing I love is the generational, and you spoke about it yesterday, the generational blessing that we can pass down to our families. And that even if we don't have it in our lineage, we can start it.
Yeah.
Can be the one to start the generational blessing. Yes. And that's, just to keep the story going, until he comes back for us. And it seems like it could be soon, but again, it could be many, many years, many more generations. But yes, my mom they were prayer warriors. I remember my boys saying, Mom, Grandpa and Grandma pray every morning, and they mention every single person in our family's name. And I said, yeah, and what a blessing that is, so I would highly encourage, yes, to pray for your families, pray over your children, your grandchildren.
Yeah.
And tell them about the Lord. And yes, from a young age, I just have such a heart. I have a heart for young women too. If you feel insecure, whether it be financial or just emotionally insecure, you feel like, you're looking for love, find it in the Lord first. Let him be your Abba Father, your daddy, your truly your heavenly Father who loves you like no one else.
Yeah.
And he will provide.
That's a great
Trust
reminder.
him. Yeah.
You know what, in some ways I'm like ready to start my day now. I know it's past noon now, but I feel like just your stories and the heritage that you come from. And frankly, I love how you've talked about some difficult things. Just like when you say that you've been set free of shame, I can hear in your voice that you carry none of that. And I just feel like I'm alive and ready to like have an awesome day.
Oh, good.
So,
I'm glad.
We'll sign off. I'm just so
Okay.
thankful that you said yes and you agreed to this. It
thank
didn't take
you.
too much coaxing.
No.
I did have to wait and see if your dental
I
work was
know.
real or if you were just making up an excuse. It seems like it was real.
It was real.
So we'll continue to pray for that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming, Connie, and I appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.